Hello and welcome to In a Spiritual Sense Kids, a podcast for parents, teachers, and caregivers seeking to support their children's emotional and energetic development. On the show, we'll blend insights from neuroscience, child psychology, and emotional awareness as we explore natural ways to help kids understand their own energy, stay grounded, and enhance creativity and imagination. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, In a Spiritual Sense, where we dive a little deeper into the metaphysical, working to build your intuition, connect with spirit guides, the paranormal, energetic healing, and more. Join me, Stacey Piagno, where we work to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Hey everyone, welcome back to In a Spiritual Sense Kids. I'm your host, Stacey Piagno. Today I have dug down in the vault and found an older episode on In a Spiritual Sense that I really think you guys are going to love. Today we are talking about highly intuitive kids. So join me for a reboot of one of my favorite episodes with special guest Ellen Edmondson, founder of supportive group Highly Intuitive Kids. Hello and welcome back to In a Spiritual Sense. I'm your host, Stacey Piagno, and I am very excited today to merge two worlds of mine together. You guys know I'm a first grade teacher. I love kids. I love to learn from kids, and I've spoken a little in the past on how children hold a wisdom within that many of us lose with age. So today, we are diving back into our youthful world with a topic that has recently started to surface more and more within our collective's awareness. Today, we will be discussing highly intuitive kids. I honestly don't think there is enough discussion on this happening, and it's very common for families to dismiss the gifts many of us come into this world with as young children. And I believe it's because intuition, up until now, has not been a topic that is often understood, used, and therefore up for discussion. Imaginary friends, we dismiss it. Impactful dreams, they don't mean anything. Premonitions, they're not valid. Emotional intelligence, what's that? However, when we disregard these gifts within us or within our children, we block ourselves from being able to feel, being able to see. We block ourselves from being able to connect with spirit, use our gifts, and find our purpose. So today it is my honor to introduce our special guest, Ellen Edmondson, who is the founder of an organization called Highly Intuitive Kids. She herself is the mother of a highly intuitive child and stepped into her own intuitive abilities shortly after her son was born. And through her experiences and the lack of support within this topic, her and her husband created Highly Intuitive Kids as a wonderful resource and community for both children and parents of children who are learning how to maneuver through an often misunderstood world. So her goal is to continuously raise awareness about children who struggle and feel misunderstood in their communities, and to support families with a better support system and the necessary resources to help these children flourish and fully grow, connected to their intuitive and empathic abilities. You don't want to miss this conversation today. Please welcome our special guest, Ellen Edmondson. Hi, Ellen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Stacey. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to be on Spiritual Sense.
Yes, well, I am so excited to talk to you today and bring more awareness around this beautiful topic and everything you've done for both children and parents. So I would love for you to start with your journey. Tell us a little bit about becoming a parent to a highly intuitive child and also becoming intuitive yourself along the way.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on to talk about this topic. This is one I do love to talk about because it helps to, I think, normalize it more for people to really understand it and how it presents in children and even with adults and how it kind of unfolded into the efforts that my family has taken on. But for our son, he's now 14. When he was 8, he's soon to be 15. His birthday's coming up. But when he was 8, we were actually on the Psychic Kids show in 2019, the premiere episode, and it was called The Ghosts in the Bed. But I'll give you the little backstory that leads up to that. When Ethan was about 18 months old, he started talking about things that we didn't fully understand But I have to say, his story intertwines with mine. So this was really like a family awakening that happened that we were going through. My gifts opened about really came, I've always had them, which most people you'll hear, they had them. They just didn't recognize what it was or truly understand it. Some children and younger folks tap into it and understand it from a young age, but it depends on your belief system. I grew up Catholic, so my belief system was part of what didn't, I had to come to grips with that when I found out I had these intuitive and mediumship abilities. So it started when my son was born. 3.5 months after that, my mother passed away. And she was my best friend. And because of that trauma, in my search for bigger meaning in life at that point, with having a new child and my mother passing away, I know right when she passed, it opened up my abilities at that time, but I didn't really know the full extent of them. But after she passed, I started having the lights flash in the house, the baby toys were going off and making sounds. The radio would come on and off. And I knew she and I were always close. So I knew it was her. It didn't totally scare me, but I didn't know how that was happening.
Mhm.
And so that was really strange. So, there was a lot of that happening for about 8 months. And then she appeared to me in a dream because I was getting scared. I couldn't sleep because the little Elmo toys, every Elmo loves me. And hello, the little thing just going all off around the house. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, mom. But she came to me in a dream about 8 months later and said, Ellen, I know I'm scaring you, because I could see her like she was standing there every night. I couldn't sleep because she was like standing right there in my dreams. And she said, Ellen, I know I'm scaring you and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go and you'll be okay and I'll be around. And it was after that dream, all the activity stopped.
Mhm.
She was gone. But, I knew she stuck around because how much I was grieving and just had the new baby.
Yeah.
So that was that. And so I was going through the whole grief process and trying to be a new mom. 3.5 years later, we'll fast forward. I had just this like 9-day awakening where all these gifts and intuitive and mediumship abilities came out. All these experiences I started having because I started meditating
Mm.
to kind of get into that quiet space of dealing with grief and being a new mom and how to work through all of this. Well, I didn't realize that meditating set the foundation for all of that to start. Well, when that started, it was around the same time that Ethan, he's around 18 months at the time, his gifts started opening. So because I was starting this, my husband and I were starting to study and trying to understand me, we were seeing things in him. And he came at 18 months. And one of the first things it was he was crying at night. He was scared because he heard an emergency vehicle go by. And he would get upset when he would hear them. And I was like calming him down. And I was like, so what's going on? We knew he didn't see it from TV because we didn't let him watch TV until he was old, above three, like around closer to 3. He didn't get to watch TV. So he said, he started telling us a story about how he was running when he was an adult, these
Mm.
bad men were chasing him and he was running and he ran into this building that was on fire. And when he was in there, his body died, but he didn't. And he said, and you and dad were there, but you weren't you and dad. You were other people. And he said, and I went to the nowhere place. He said, told us we were sad that he went to the nowhere place. And he said, and I waited in the nowhere place because I waited for you and dad to come back together so I could be your son.
Mm.
And he was telling us he came back to us and he said, but you and dad took a long time to get together. And he was right because we got married older.
Yeah.
And so we were just sitting like parents, just like, wow, what is that? And we were just starting to learn a little bit more about past lives and delving into things because of what I was going through. And I was like, I think he was just talking about that was a past life because he was talking about when he was an adult before. So we had that incident, and then little things started popping up because another night he was racing upstairs to go to bed, and he normally didn't do that. And I was like, why are you racing upstairs to go to bed? And my mother had passed 3.5 months after he died. He said, because grandma comes to play ball with me at night.
Yes, I love that.
Oh. And that melted my heart because that was just more confirmation that even though my mom was gone, she was still around. And the last quick one I'll tell you, I
Yeah.
share this because these are things for parents to pay attention to and don't brush
Mhm.
them off as insignificant or not meaning
Yeah.
things, but just listen because these are little signs. Children are so connected at that young age. They're truly in that right brain, intuitive way of existing that they are so connected to have that spiritual connection. So there's one last real quick story. It was after my mother died, a year and a half later, my father-in-law had passed away. And it was at that point, Ethan stopped being able to sleep in his room at night. He'd always want to come get in the bed with us. Asked him why. He's like, because grandpa's in my room.
Mm.
And so that's when we knew he was really sensitive and picking up on having sixth sense experiences around him.
Yeah, no, that's so amazing. I love this conversation. And I've done a little bit of research on it as well. And they say up until about the age of 6, children are very closely connected to spirit because they don't grow into their bias yet. Their experiences are much more pure. And then as we get older, the influences around us are very often what we start to pick up. So I think those are such beautiful stories and a beautiful start to all of your whole family's journey. So tell us a little bit about the A&E Psychic Kids show and how your organization, Highly Intuitive Kids, first came about.
Okay. Well, for the A&E Psychic Kids show, we'll fast forward, and absolutely I agree 1,000% with what you said, Stacy, because it is when children enter school and logic clicks in. That's what it does. They start becoming more logic oriented, and we start just letting go of that gift of intuitively, creatively connecting and knowing things. And we start relying on outside of ourselves. But it's usually, you're absolutely right, right around that time they start entering school when that side of life kicks in and it kind of diminishes the other side. But Ethan was 8. And when he was in school, he started getting, because he thought these big thoughts and he would think about things. He would go to school and talk about, he'd have conversations like, he's like, Mom, come on. He's 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm trying to explain to the kids how we're multidimensional beings and they don't get it. Or he's coming home talking about, I'm trying to get them to understand that our first language didn't include words. We talk with our mind. He was talking about like telepathy. He's
Yeah.
like, they don't understand. So he started getting people not understanding him and he started getting bullied. Because I was trying to explain to him, you can't talk. We talk about this at home, but not everybody understands this out. These are things that, and we'll go more into like how parents need to just be aware on how you talk to your children about this.
Mhm.
So because he was advanced and having all these different experiences that we didn't understand, I was like, what do you do? Like most parents, what do? You don't talk to a doctor about it. You can't really, schools, they don't understand this. Although there's more awareness now that's starting to come out than it was when we were first going through this. Who do you talk to? I happened to get an email, and I always say this is the divine synchronicities that happen.
Yeah.
Came across my inbox about a casting call for Psychic Kids show. And I really had gone into prayer mode. It's like, how do we help him? Because to navigate all of this and how do we talk about this and what do we do when he's outside of the house? That casting call came up.
Mm.
So I was like, this is a sign. Maybe I'll just apply for it and see what happens. I did. And it was like, put in a request. About 2 hours later, I had one of the directors was calling me after I wrote up about my son's experiences and what we were going through. And from that point, it was like 2 weeks later, they vetted us. Being on the Psychic Kids show, just so folks know, they really do, you go through testing and you go through a whole process, a vetting process. So it's not like they're like, oh, we've got some money, we just stick them on the show. They really vet. So by the time we landed on the show, they knew Ethan, our family was legitimate. Ethan legitimately had abilities.
Yeah.
And there were 15 other families across the country that were on this show. So after we went through that whole experience, that was what really opened our eyes to all the different gifts that Ethan had and his sensitivities and just how big they were. But we watched all the episodes together and realized we're not the only people, because when you're going through something, you think you're so alone.
Yeah.
You're the only one, like, where do you go? What do you do? How do you talk about this? But when we saw that and we watched all the episodes with all the kids and the families across the country, we said, okay, we believe we're big service people. And we're like, we go through something for a reason. Every experience we have, we go through it for a reason. And we turn around and we try to help others with that. So after we went through the whole show and realizing the extent, I was like, there's a lot more families out here. People are afraid to talk about it. They don't want, because others don't want folks to think they're a little bit, weird, or this is unusual, or somebody's going to think I'm crazy. Because when I first started having my opening, I lovingly referred to myself as cuckoo berries. I kept telling my husband, "Oh, I'm not going cuckoo berries." He's like, "No, you're one of the most logical people I know. It's not cuckoo berries. What you're showing me." So I was like, we've got to start helping to break down the stigma around people understanding sixth sense experiences and heightened intuition.
Yeah.
So after that show, we started a whole effort to help put this out, normalize conversations, and give a resource for families to go to. And I'll give you even a little more background story on that. Was because one day when my son did come home from school, and it was after the Psychic Kids show, and I'm telling him he has to be proud of himself and his experiences and his abilities. And I was doing readings for people, but quietly, not telling
Yeah.
anybody, just keeping it kind of, and working with people on things. And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, I can't be me until you be you. Stop hiding."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And that's out of the mouths of babes. I was like, that was God, the universe, divine, whatever label you want to put on it, was telling me, you have to step in your truth and be you publicly in order to help. I was like, what kind of a parent, if I'm going to hide my abilities and have my son hide or diminish himself? We weren't being authentic.
Yeah.
Like, that was really my point, where it pushed me to embrace my abilities publicly and purposefully and with intention and out there to help. And I was like, we need to talk about this. We need to put it out there. And
Mm.
so because of what he said to me, that's what helped to drive me out to do this. So we started, and with readings I was doing with people, there was one parent who had a teenage son, and she didn't know what was going on with him. And she mentioned that after I was doing a reading for her, she said, "I don't know why I need to tell you this, but I just need to talk about it." And nobody knew I hadn't started this effort yet. But told me that she thought her son was going to commit suicide.
Hmm.
And she started explaining some of the things, the characteristics that he was having, that he was withdrawing from the family, he started not doing well at school, all these different things. But what she was explaining were the traits of what I had noticed in my son. Not that he was going to commit suicide, but just the
Yeah.
experience he was having.
Yeah.
So I explained to her, I was like, "No, it sounds like your son is like my son." I said, "Go back and ask. Does he see colors? Does he hear things around him when there's nobody in the room? Does he experience different sensations in his body? Does he have?" And she reached out to me about 2 days later and she said, "Oh my God, I am so happy I talked to you," because she said, "You just saved my son's life." We talked to him, and he's having all those experiences of seeing and hearing things that he was afraid to tell anybody, because they were very religious family,
Yeah.
Baptist, and he didn't want anybody to think he was crazy.
Hmm.
So and this was a stepmother. The stepmother got the father talking to him. They realized he was actually gifted. And that's the experience. That's what was happening. That's why he was drawing from friends and family and the whole thing and not talking about it. But all of that led me to set up my son's story, this particular story, and then being guided. I woke up 3 o'clock for 3 weeks, 3 a.m. in the morning. That's that
Yeah.
intuitive hour.
Yep. Uh-huh.
That's that time. And being guided to set up a website and to start a Facebook group for parents to help start putting these words out there, and information that, whether a child or parent had somebody to support them in their life, like this 14-year-old who he finally opened up and told, but that there's a resource that people could find online so they can go and read it and look at the information and know they're not strange, it's not weird, they're not alone. So there's a website, the Highly Intuitive Kids
Yes.
.com. That's how that started. And then the parent group branched off of that Facebook parent group. So
Yeah.
we can keep conversations going.
Ugh, what a beautiful story. I mean, such purpose and such a beautiful message. And I love my favorite part of all this is when your son kind of inspired you to step into your gifts so he could step into his, so that you guys together and your family can inspire others. And it's such a beautiful purpose. It's just glaring. Um, so let's talk about some of the signs that these children may have. You just kind of mentioned a few, because I think that it can be very challenging for both kids and for parents to kind of go through this whole experience and to step into their gifts in a society that I think is catching up to it. I think it's just not talked about. It's not something that we really acknowledge. It's not something that we put value on, I think is one of the things. So, what are some signs, you mentioned a few, that parents can look for in their children, or maybe some issues that they may be struggling with in school? School is kind of a common place that kids will be. What is your experience with this?
Okay, that's a great question because and when parents hear some of the signs, they start to say, "Oh, I didn't think about it in that way." But you're right, society is struggling to catch up, but we are further along because you hear more of this talk about intuition and even, just somewhat of like the metaphysical. It's not just metaphysical, but it's just really like being authentic and embracing that part of ourselves that is connected to something more. So one of the things that parents can look for children is do they, and people have heard this before, my child seems like a wise old soul. They know things beyond their years, or they can talk about things that you may not have, how did they know that? How did they bring that up? And I can give some examples of certain things as well, but being close to nature and to animals, that's another good thing. So spending time out in nature is very grounding for children, but children who are very connected to nature and animal communications. Our son used to tell us all the time what our dog was thinking and saying to him when he was little.
Mm-hmm.
So if your child has imaginary friends, don't think that that's sometimes it's imaginary play, but if they're talking about it and listen to what they're saying and how they describe their imaginary friends. Because if they're giving a level of detail that's more than just, the normal just playing and I'm playing with, little Sarah but giving some details, pay attention. They may be actually experiencing or connecting with someone who, and usually it's when they're that of a really young age, it's usually a loved one that's
Yeah.
around, a grandparent, an aunt, and uncle, somebody that they know. And with that, I offer to parents, keep some family albums out with
Mm.
pictures of people that have crossed over in your family history. Because if a child is picking up or sensing somebody around them, they'll be able to say, I'm communicating with, Aunt Becky or Grandma. I know I'm seeing, it'll help you to also be able to tell the types of gifts they're having. If
Yeah.
they're able to see clairvoyant, if they're seeing psychic seeing, or psychic hearing, if they're hearing things that aren't there. Now I always caveat things with always check, rule out anything physical first, with doctors. Talk about that. You always want to make sure that your child doesn't have anything more than just the sixth sense experiences going on around them. But also kids who don't like to be in crowds, large crowds, because of the energy overwhelm. And if you're empath, children can feel that they register other people's emotions or the energy of a situation within their own body. And so you might have a child that experiences headaches quite a bit, or
Oh, yeah.
stomach aches quite a bit if they're coming home from school with those. Our son used to come home with headaches and stomach aches, and we figured we had to teach him how to protect his own energy.
Ooh.
You teach your child how to bubble up their energy and be able to keep theirs close to them and anything outside of that outside of themselves. School can be particularly hard for children who are sensitive. And when teachers don't understand and the parents don't understand, the child is not knowing how to navigate. So they may come home and have meltdowns more than usual, especially younger children. But even for older children, they may come home. Give you an example with my son, who is now 14. He still comes home after school and takes a nap
Mhm.
because of the class, being in the hallway, high school class size, you got to change classes, that kind of thing. So that's important. How are they handling their emotions, or like I mentioned, stomach aches and headaches? Is sometimes it may be hard to keep a secret or a surprise from them because they just know.
Oh,
They
yeah.
get all their gifts at Christmas time.
Christmas time is fun.
That's something I used to do when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would always guess my gifts. My mom would be like, "You're not gonna have any surprises
Oh,
for
that's
you
so
for the
funny.
holiday."
Yes.
So those are some of the big signs, that parents can look for.
Mhm.
But if they're mentioning one of the great things I think for like younger kids, and you have to handle them in stages, because for children who are, like 2 to like 8, they their gifts, as they're coming into their gifts and growing into it more, some kids lose it because, like we said, some kids, every child is intuitive, every single child, every person. We just have it to different degrees.
Mm.
And so for some kids, they hold on to it longer because they're more sensitive. Some kids, they lose that sense of, that's not their strongest part. But children's gifts can change from that younger age to, the tween years to the teen years and then young adult. So whatever child may start with, don't always think that that's what they're going to end with, because it will evolve. And especially when they hit teen years, hormones kick in. That's a great time of things shifting and changing and ability shifting and changing. So tween teens need a different level of support than what it evolves from what you would give to a younger child. And throughout the whole process is teaching them how to honor their feelings, their energy, how they're moving and connected to things. But parents have to be open and listen. And even if you're a parent that you understand your child has abilities, don't push them to use it. Just normalize and support it. Because like I said, it will change, but a child's got to do it when they're ready. And a lot of times kids at a young age are unabandoned. They're not inhibited by anything. They haven't learned, like, I want to be like my peers. I want to fit in. They hit that teen tween, I want to fit in. And that's perfectly fine. I will deny my gifts for a few years. That's perfectly fine. Some won't, a lot do. And then as they get older, they're eventually, the call will get so great on them, they will come back into it. I call it like recovering intuitives.
That's funny.
That's what I was, a recovering intuitive, because I didn't realize the magnitude of what I had when I was younger. But as I got older, and it just came back to me in a way that I couldn't deny that this was my path.
Yeah.
And if we can keep our children as parents connected, understanding, keeping conversations open and talking to them, keeping them grounded in themselves and supporting this and not normalizing it, they'll stay connected to that part of themselves, even in a little way when they're trying to go in that fitting in time. And then they will come back strong and really be able to embrace it and go with it with whatever capacity they're meant to use it to benefit the world themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think that's such good advice, and I think people really need to hear it. And we'll share your website and things below because you have so much useful information there. And I think it's really important that parents have someone like you and all of your information to help support their children, not stifle them. We don't want them to close up these gifts. Does Ethan, what are some of his and yours? Let's talk about both of you guys for a minute. What are some of the ways that you guys perceive? Have things changed within Ethan? Is he living in them still, or is he at that age where he's starting to want to fit in? What is his life kind of looking like right now?
Well, for him right now, when he was much younger, his gifts were really big, and he experienced a lot of, big emotions and big feelings. Like when he was little, we would take him out to festivals or to different things, and we realized very quickly he would scream and holler,
Mm.
scream and holler. I want to get out of here. We didn't know what was going on. It's like, why is he doing this? And we were getting frustrated because we didn't understand it was so much energy. And little babies that cry all the time, and that sometimes they think, oh, they're just colicky, or sometimes it's just too much energy
Yeah.
around them. But he would cry at events, and then we started figuring things out. And then after we got on the Psychic Kids show, became much more apparent. But he could do things, and some children have the ability of astral travel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I realized I used to do that as a child.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was. Like if you're having dreams like you're falling or you're
Yes.
flying through the air, and he would tell us when he was younger about places he had been and visited that were like, we didn't take you there. But he's like, but he could give details on some things. So that was one of now that he's gotten older, he doesn't do that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Grown is like his sister, because younger children are just so much more connected in a different way.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things. But of course, he had the ability of clairvoyance, of being able to see energies around him,
Mm-hmm.
and hear. That clairvoyance was one of his strongest things. I'm trying to remember. There was a whole, but they gave us a whole list of things. We were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But what I've seen is it has transitioned, and now he's at that stage of being a young teen, that he wants to, he wants to be like everyone else.
Yeah.
He knows he has his abilities, and he's like, I know I have them and they're there,
Mhm.
but I don't want to use them. I don't want to, engage with them at this point. I don't want to, because I just want to be like everyone else.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he knows that, and we tell him that's fine, and you have to go through that stage. But you
Mhm.
know that we're here, and I'm here.
Yeah.
I have the same, we have similar but different. I do mediumship and intuitive readings, so psychic readings and mediumship readings. The part of it for me that I have that is a little unique is that I can draw people's departed loved ones. So I do art, mine pulls art into it. Do
Hmm.
soul readings for people through art and give a past, present, future reading of their soul's journey. So I pull art into mine. And for Ethan, it's still evolving and changing for him.
Yeah.
But from where he was to where he is now, it's beautiful to see the
Yeah.
stage of development. But I don't force him, I don't push him. I just let him know that whenever you're ready, we're here. And the thing that we do is we keep our conversations in our house could be about anything and everything.
Yeah, I love it.
We make it normal. You come and you say, "Oh yeah, I just saw somebody over in the corner, and this person was." Oh, okay. So what did you pick up from that?
Yeah.
What did you, going to school? I had the strong sense that this wasn't right. Trust it. Go with it. If
Mm.
if this not feeling right with you intuitively, don't deny that you're getting a hit. That means something. So we continue to talk him through how to use it and how
Yeah.
to experience it.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And you're such a great role model for him, especially, living in your talents now. I love that you guys have dinner talk about that. And it's something that's really cool that you and I kind of bonded over was the spirit art. You and I are very similar in that sense, where I've been starting to draw more as well. And, I draw my guides and I draw spirits that I can see and perceive. I do a lot of color. I work a lot with color. And you've inspired me to kind of step out and maybe one day soon start doing this for others. So I think it's such a beautiful gift and a way to connect everyone with spirit and with ourselves. So Ethan is very lucky to have you as his mom.
Question?
Yeah, yes, ask me.
Yeah, because see, I love what you're doing, Stacey, and it is important. And I think because the more of us who are out there, and I refer to us all affectionately, a lot of people have heard the term as light workers who are out
Hmm.
there putting
Yeah.
out this kind of light into the world, is that it helps people to understand more. The more of us who step forward in our talents and
Mhm.
gifts and puts them out there. But you're a teacher and you
Yes.
teach elementary school. So I know, and with you being tapped in this way as well, what have you seen in your students that
Yeah.
has just kind of amazed you or surprised you of how intuitively connected they are?
Yeah, art is a big one. Art is
Mhm.
really big. Actually, so just these past couple of weeks, I don't know why I haven't done this before. Um, I don't overstep my boundaries, but I'm like, hey, let's all start drawing what we dreamed about. It's kind of like a morning work thing that we'll come in and do because they have journals. And in first grade, they can pretty much write at this point. There's some of them are still learning how. But I taught kindergarten for years as well. And kindergarten, they're 5 going on 6. And so they're so connected. And so I love allowing them to do art and just to be as creative as they can. But we've started doing dreams lately, and I'm like, okay, draw what you guys dreamt about. And they are so tapped in. They can draw everything with details. And I just want them to just connect and just remember that's all, just express themselves. So art is really a beautiful way that something that I've seen with them. I actually have seen some kids too who I believe are very tapped in. I've had kids, they've got it, they're talking to somebody, but they're not talking to the kids in class. One thing I will say is it is a little hard for me to stay tuned into my abilities in school because there's so much energy. I kind of block it off when I'm at school and I'm just trying to give them space to be who they need to be and then teach them and direct them and move them everywhere. It's like herding cats is a common saying we like to say. But yeah, allowing them to do art and kind of how you were saying with parenting, allowing myself to fully listen to them. I think something that's very common in the teaching world is we have a schedule, we have an agenda. It's like go, go, go. I get caught in that trap sometimes and I have to remind myself, okay, hold on, Stacey, let's have these special moments where when they want to come up and tell me something every 5 seconds, let me hold some space for them to do that. Like, let me listen to what they're actually saying because a lot of times they'll come up with these incredible stories. I have a friend of mine who's very psychically in tune. And he was like, your kids are going to bring you gifts. Like your kids are going to bring you signs or things like this. And this was a few years back, but he was like, Spirit just told me that a student of yours is going to bring you a penny. Look for it because it's just a gift from Spirit. It's a gift from your angel. And so the next Monday, this cute little girl, she was very tapped in. She was like, Miss Piagno, I brought you a penny. And I was like, yes. So I have all of these incredible things happening. Also, too, something that I work a lot with dreams. My listeners hear me talk about it all the time. Something that is beautiful that happens to me very often is I will have a dream of myself as a student, as one of my students. So I have a boy in class this year, and he needs a lot of love, and he's got a big personality, and it can appear that he's very challenging to deal with. But I have had dreams where I am him and I can feel what he's feeling. Like it's not like, so there's some dreams where I'll have dreams of my students and they represent aspects of me. That's one layer. But this dream, I was him. I could feel what he felt in class and I could feel myself, exterior for me, talking to him. And I could feel what he was feeling as I would talk to him. And I could feel what he needed. And I could feel why he was acting the way he was. And I was like, wow. I woke up from that and I was like, what a gift because I understand him now. And it was something where in the beginning, there's some kids where you have to learn what they need. You got to try certain things, trial and error. But after this dream, and it's happened a couple of times, but his was one of the strongest, I knew what he was thinking when he would quote unquote act out. And I knew what he needed. And it was just this incredible moment where I could feel his brain processing and it just helped me connect with him. So that's something really beneficial for me as I will have dreams that help me better communicate with my kids or they'll put me in check. Like, Stacey, you need to back off of the structure for a little bit and listen to them. So these are all things that I went on a tangent, but
No, not a
yeah,
tangent, definitely. I love all that you just shared because those are some of the conversations. Like you said, the art is huge for young children.
yeah,
That's how they can express. And if parents are looking for a way, you create a safe space in the house.
mm,
You know that your child is intuitively or you incline, even if you don't think they're intuitively connected, just art is a wonderful way to express that. So I love the thing that's so beautiful with what you're doing, Stacey, is because even with this effort, I'm paired up with another organization that we go around and locally I've been out talking about what I'm doing. And we've had parents and counselors and teachers and folks come up and talk to us, about kids, the teachers are noticing this. Counselors, folks are noticing kids are so much more tapped in. But the beauty of what you bring is like we started opening up to Ethan after Ethan's teachers after we were on the Psychic Kids show. We said because of that, I'm not hiding this, but you also know how much and how you need to talk because everyone's belief system, is
yeah,
different and they depends on how they're willing and open their to embracing it. But I started talking to Ethan's teachers about it, and we had especially two teachers who came forward and said, I don't want everybody to know this, but I have the gifts as well. And I will be able to help look out for Ethan in school, just like what you're saying, how you felt about the young man and how you
yeah,
could fit in. These teachers started looking out and gave him the space, like at lunchtime when it was too much to be running around or being around the other kids, he could come to their classroom and sit in quiet time because of the intuitive overload that he could pick up.
yeah,
And they would talk to him, and but they could talk in a way that it was okay for he had the safe space to be able to talk about his intuitive gifts, and it
mm,
wasn't weird or strange. But the teachers tapped into him, and that's why I think it's such a beautiful thing when you have teachers that are willing to open up or willing to
yeah,
bring aspects of that into the class, like what you're doing, and you're creating that space for them. I mean, applaud you big time for that. Ethan had a teacher who would start class with 2 minutes of quiet time, like meditation, just sitting in quiet and had little chimes. And he was saying, Mom, after going from transition, this was when he was in like sixth grade,
hmm
sixth grade middle school. He said it was so grounding and centering. Then I could focus
mm,
on what, and all she did was 2 minutes at the beginning of class. And it was changing kids' behaviors. And I think there's such a way with the efforts that we've done and things we put on the website on how even little moments that can be created in a classroom that teachers may be surprised at how much it will shift behaviors of children who are highly intuitive. So that's why I love what you just shared and what you're doing as a teacher. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we do a lot of breathing in class too, especially with the little ones. They're so, they have so much energy. And like every transition that we do, I started having them. There's a cute breathing exercise. I'll share it right now. I got it from another teacher. But when kids feel overstimulated or when Miss Piagno needs one more minute to get things ready, I have a little leader come up to the front and the rest of them are sitting on the carpet. And you hold up your hand and you breathe. And when you breathe, you trace your hand. And as you come up your finger, you're going to breathe in through your nose. And then when you go down your finger, you breathe out through your mouth. So you're going in, out, in, out. And you trace each one of your fingers, which will be 5 breaths, or you can have them keep redoing it. And so they all do it on the carpet. And it helps them ground their energy. I'm going to start incorporating some more things that we talked about today too. I love the energetic bubble protection. I mean, I talk about that a lot for adults and for, other things on this show, but it would be a great thing to teach kids as well. Does Ethan know how to do some of that stuff for himself? Like, is he able to advocate like, hey, I need some space, or does he know that he needs to go sit in silence? Or when you said he gets home, he has to take a nap, do you mention that he should do that, or is he able to come up with that himself?
He's able to come up with that himself, but that's also based on when he was younger and when we found out about his gifts. There was visualization is very powerful, not only for children, but for adults too. This
Yes.
is all energy, so it's invisible, and it starts with the mind, and you create those boundaries and the bubbles around yourself and protecting your energy. So from with Ethan and from younger and talking at the workshops that I do when we go around locally, teaching them how to visualize and putting themselves and their energy in that bubble. And it's just something very simple, but there was an exercise called Surround Ground Shield
Mm.
that we've taught Ethan from a young age. And we actually got that from, there's a book that I refer people to because she was a wonderful mentor. After we were on the Psychic Kids show, we linked up with her, but Pat Longa, I don't know if you've heard her name, but she's the mentor to the Long Island Medium.
Okay.
Yeah, she's written a book called The Gifts Beneath Your Anxiety, and she has a wonderful technique in there called Surround Ground Shield. And it's teaching children and adults, anyone who's highly intuitive and empathic, how to visualize putting their energy field, putting themselves in a bubble, like you're surrounded by God's divine light of protection. And that all of your energy that's within this bubble is yours and is protected in that bubble, and anything on the outside of it belongs to somebody else. And so it's just really creating awareness on how they can start to manage their energy better. Because when you're just wide open and you're around all these other, it's super draining. So for Ethan, we've taught that, and that's something that I think parents and teachers who are willing to
Yeah.
subtly incorporate it into the classroom, which you can do, it's helpful. Like just a lot of the mindfulness techniques, like you mentioned, like breathing and even like yoga movement. All those different things can be incorporated in little ways, but he is aware of what he needs. And then even like you said, for Ethan, he comes home, he knows that like when he's very tired, it's because it's just the energy overload, but that's just his little decompression time to
Yeah.
reset. And then he's up and ready to do his homework and to go. And so I think it's teaching kids to learn what works for them, because
Yeah.
not every technique will work for every child,
Hmm.
but it's really helpful. So
Cool.
yeah, so I love the breathing technique you just said too, Stacey.
Yeah,
That's
it's a good one. It's good too because kids or adults, I mean, I listen, I do it with them. I'm like, Miss Piano needs to breathe right now. But it's good because they have a physical visual thing to look at as well. So they can trace and they can look and breathe. And that's one of my favorite things that we do. Can you quickly explain what is the difference between an intuitive and an empath for some of these parents who are trying to help their children? I know it kind of bleeds over a little bit, but can you explain the difference between that?
sure. So for me and how I look at intuitive and empath is a person who it does bleed over, but empaths are really connected to feeling and registering the energy or the emotions it can be the emotions of people around them within their body.
Hmm.
You feel those emotions as if they are actually yours. So and you can catch a mood flu or cold. I say someone comes in with a in a bad mood and you are fine. before you were in the room or
Hmm.
before they came in the room, and all of a sudden now you're feeling down or depressed and you don't even know why. So, but you're picking up something from another person or the environment. If you walk into a room that there was just a big argument in and people left, and you pick that energy up. So, and that's where the bubbling techniques come in. For me, high intuition is also, and even for people with empathic, who are highly empathic, which is dealing for me a lot of the emotional aspects and picking that up. Intuition is more like the sixth sense, dealing with, like some of those extra sensory types of
Hmm.
experiences that people have. And when you have the combination of the two of them, you're really sensitive a person. But if you're hearing things, seeing things, colors, orbs, auras around people, experiencing psychic, like I said, clairvoyance, clairaudience,
Yeah.
sensing, just knowing things dropping into your brain. You just like, oh, I just know, that, or I can feel a lot of information coming to me. So there's a little, for me, that's a little bit of a difference. There is an overlap, but that's the difference between the highly empathic person and the highly intuitive person. And there are
Yeah.
different types of empaths too that, tap into different aspects of life. Like sometimes people don't think about empaths in a way that, like, you have spiritual empaths who really know and sense and pick up things spiritually. You have the kinesthetic empath, and those are children. Sometimes those are your children who may not be able to sit still. Not only
Mm.
just children or adults, and they are gifted with movement. And
Yes.
sometimes people don't realize that these kids who have to constantly move and be expressing, sometimes they get labeled ADHD
Yeah.
and ADD, that kind of thing. That's a whole nother conversation, but
Yeah.
it may not necessarily be so. It may just be that they are so in tune with movement in their bodies. They just need to move. And when you give them that space to do that, they can burn it off, and then they can sit down and go back and pay attention. But then there's empaths that are the creative empath. And that empath is one who, like us, art,
Yeah.
we use it in a way that's different and unique, but it's calling and drawing to us in a different creative kind of way.
Hmm.
Uh, so I said the spiritual, the kinesthetic, the creative, the psychic. Like I said, that's to me psychic and empath. That's where you kind of get that bleed of
Yeah.
being in tune with people and sensing the sixth sense of it all. And I'm forgetting there's one more that'll come to me, but those
Yeah.
are things that it can present in a little different way for each child, and just being tapped in and letting them express themselves in that way. But those are some of the, just in a summary, the differences there. And
Yeah.
I will always refer people back to our website because all that stuff is listed on there as well.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next question is, so all of this wonderful information that we've been talking about, is your website the best place to go? Highlyintuitivekids.com, is that it?
Yes, you can go there. You can start there. Even on that website, there are books and resources there. So we put out books and information that parents, teachers, educators, anyone can go and look. It's to start giving people a foundation to understand this. And even for parents, I tell parents, please, even when you go to your school, like we were able to start the conversation with some of the teachers. And I'm not afraid to talk about this with folks. It's how you talk about it that makes a
Yeah.
difference. It's how you present it. But to make it palatable for people to really understand it. But just talking about when you're saying empath, some kids who are highly intuitive or highly empathic could get diagnosed because this can mimic other things. It can mimic ADD, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and just many other things. So I tell parents to really understand the difference. Get to know, like, if there's really a diagnosis of an ADD or ADHD, there's a brain stem issue.
Mm.
So really focus, and have that conversation around that. When this high intuition and empathy can mimic that, it's because children may not be getting the downtime or the environment set around them where it helps to ground them, where they're taught the grounding techniques, where they're taught the ways to manage themselves so it's not energy overload. There's the brainstem and there's energy overload. You really want to know the difference. And so that's going to be really important, for parents to tap into that. But I tell people the website is a great foundation for understanding all of this and starting conversations and using it to talk to a doctor or teacher. Say, hey, take a look at this. There's something out here. We be sure to link studies and PhD reports and information in different aspects up to the website so that people can use it. It's really, we wanted to make it credible and understandable and a resource that could at least start opening minds to normalizing what this means.
Yeah, I think that's such a big. Your website is amazing, by the way. I've looked all through it. It does have so much good information. And I think the ADD, ADHD thing, I think that it's too common for all of these kids to be having, especially these days. It's so quick to just say that that's the problem, cover it up with some medicine, and then no one can feel anything ever again. It's like, I mean, there is a place for it. And I feel like, we won't get into the conversation of medicine and whatnot, but there's a place for it. But I think we shouldn't be so quick to just jump to those. I think we should, as you're saying, really work to understand what is actually happening. Is it energy? Or like you said, is it in the brain? I think that was so beneficial for all of us to hear. So do you guys have, you mentioned that sometimes you go and you do events. Do you have any events happening soon or in the future?
Yes, we actually have a wonderful person that we partnered with about 2 years ago. It's called the Illuminate Festivals, and the owner is Judy Basis, and she's wonderful. She goes around holding local wellness festivals in different areas up and down the East Coast. And we've partnered up, and we go with her to certain locations, the ones we can get out to in that given year. And we put on workshops to talk about the signs of a highly intuitive child, how to parent the highly intuitive child. And we have brochures and a booth, and we hand out information to folks. And our goal is to expand even more and to get, start getting into schools. I've been doing podcasts and talking about this topic. I've been blessed to be on in different countries about talking about this. Because when we set up that community and the website, it became it was just such a joy to see that we had people from other countries and places reaching out, because I know when we did that, it's like there's people all over, the children all over the world,
Yes.
and not just children. What we've seen come out of this when we've gone to these local events and started talking to folks is I've had just as many adults come up and say, this shouldn't be highly intuitive kids, it should be highly intuitive people, because
Mm.
I'm that child that didn't get that support. It's so much more out there. It's just the conversations that need to be had around it. Because 15 to 20% of the population has this heightened sense of it, but everyone's got it to some degree.
Yeah.
So we do this every year. Our next ones that we have are coming up in like the summer with this particular festival in Annapolis, Maryland, Columbia, Maryland, New Frederick, Maryland. It's going to be all around in this area. But we're looking to branch out and get more and more exposure out there talking to folks. So I've been doing even more podcasts on this, and I'm open to anybody who wants, to have a more conversation. I love what we're doing here. This is just touching the surface. There's so many
Yeah.
areas you can really dive deep on. But I think the more that we can normalize the conversations and get people to really open up
Hmm.
and just start understanding it, you start realizing just what you said, Stacy, about the diagnosis is that it is too much. Last year, my son and I were watching TV, and there was a commercial on about, they said it was a number like 43%. And I didn't even say anything. My son was like, Mom, they said 43% of children are being diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And he looked at me, he said, Mom, that's not right. And I was like, no, it's not right. I was like, when a statistic is that high, it's not an anomaly anymore. There's a shift that's happening with these children, and they are coming in intuitively connected, and they
Hmm.
learn in a different way, which that's a whole nother conversation. Learning styles, the
Yes.
linear learning versus the intuitive learner, and the school systems are not set up for intuitive learning.
Mm-mm.
And that's how a lot of these children are getting labeled,
Yes.
because it's an environmental issue, because it's not set up to teach them in a way that they learn best. And so that's another important aspect of it all as well. Uh,
Yeah.
but that we saw that commercial, and it was just, I was blown away. But for my son to say, that doesn't seem right, the number is that high. It's like, it's not. It's a shift that people don't understand what's going on with the new generation.
Absolutely. Have you heard of telepathy tapes? It
Uh,
is it's a podcast, but it's also on YouTube. So it's you have to just go Google it and everyone listening. It's amazing. It's a woman, her name is Kai Dickens or Kai Dickinson, I believe. And I think she used to be a neuroscience and or she's a journalist. Or she works with the neuroscience, but they have proven that it's like a 98% accuracy that children, they work with autistic children and children who are nonverbal, and that they're just taking data and proving that they are all telepathic and that they can communicate, but it's not through words. And it's incredible. I don't want to get into it too much because it's a whole nother conversation, but Google it and look for it. I've been listening to it. It's amazing. I think she's going to make a movie on it soon. That's her goal. But it's just all of these tapes and documentations of her working with children, and they're just recording what's happening. And it's so beautiful and it's so eye-opening for people. So I just want to throw that out there. Um, well, Ellen, is there a chance that maybe Ethan would want to come and say hi to all of us?
sure, let me see if I can
Yeah,
get.
yeah, I would love to say hi.
And this is my
Hi, Ethan.
10-year-old now, soon to
Hello.
be 15-year-old. Can you come in here?
Hi, Ethan. I'm Miss Stacy. Welcome to In a Spiritual Sense. How are you, bud?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Awesome. I've been talking to your mom a lot. She is an incredible woman. You're very lucky to have her and your dad as parents. What
Yeah.
is your favorite thing about your parents, Ethan?
My favorite thing about my parents is how much they care for me and how much they're willing to sacrifice to give me the opportunities that I have.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I think that you're so lucky to have parents that are supportive. We've been talking a lot today about being intuitive and all kinds of gifts. I'm a teacher also, Ethan. And so I work with little kids much smaller than you. But I wanted to ask you, Ethan, what do you think is the best part about being intuitive?
I think it's because you get to like experience life through like a different lens. Because it's like some people get to experience it through just like, just normally. And then you get to experience it through like connecting to spirit. Not to say that other people can't, like it might be to a lesser extent, but some people are connected more than others.
Yeah, very cool. And do you have anything that you would say to people? So you're growing up now, you're older. You know, when you were first going through a lot of this as a young child, what would you maybe say to people who are feeling like they don't fit in? Because I think it's very common that there are a lot of people who have all of these wonderful gifts, and I think sometimes we feel a little alienated, like we feel like others don't understand us. Have you found anything successful that you could share with anyone going through that?
Mainly just talking with your parents and trying to branch out, I would say. Because if you have like one or two really good friends that you can talk to, that's really nice.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to have support. That's something that's helped me too, because I've been through a little bit of that too. Okay, I have one more question for you. What do you
Mhm.
want to be when you get older? What do you want to do in this world?
When I'm older, I want to be an inventor that helps build things to create the future.
Awesome. Well, Ethan, I can't wait to see what you invent. I feel like you're going to be very, very powerful in this life. I think you're going to have a lot of cool stuff happening. Well, thank you so much for coming to say hi, Ethan. And Ellen, I want to thank you too for coming on our show. Is there anything else before we wrap up here, either Ethan or Ellen, that you guys want to share with everyone listening?
Wow. Thank you for having us, having me
Hmm.
on and inviting Ethan to come in. The main thing I can say for parents is the more you can educate yourself about this and not to dismiss those experiences that they have. And don't look at them for children starting when they're young or even that it's unusual or different. It's really educating yourself about it and being open to normalizing conversations. I think that's one of the best things for us is that Ethan's always been able to talk about it and feel comfortable expressing himself. There's nothing too off top, strange a topic or anything, but that helps him to feel comfortable and know that it's okay to be him. Because the more we can teach our children to stay connected to it and don't have to become recovering intuitives like I was, or those of us who, grow up and you're not connected to it because of belief systems or whatever it may be, um, the world is missing out because
Yeah.
we're meant to show up with these gifts and bring the whole of ourselves to the world and offer it in a way we help each other. We're light and touch points for each other. And so if we're not being our best or showing up as our best, we're not helping others to do the same. And so that's what that's what I tell Ethan is just, we want him to grow up to be the best that he's meant to be. And since he was like, I don't know, since you were like 4 or 5, he's always talked about being an inventor. So we know that's
Oh, amazing. I love it.
our website and our information. And it's just the beginning of really educating yourselves and letting yourselves be, help support your children in the best way.
Yeah, very beautiful. Yeah, we're all made different for a reason, you know. We're all supposed to learn how to step into who we truly are. So I love everything that we've talked about today. Thank you so much, Ellen and Ethan, for coming on. And just, I'm so grateful that I got a chance to meet both of you guys. And who knows, maybe we'll be working a little bit together in the future. I think that would be really fun. But thank you guys so much for coming on.
And thank you, Stacy, for everything you're doing to help put out this beautiful information out into the world. We appreciate
Thank you
the
guys.
invitation.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, guys, well, that's all we have this week. If you enjoyed today's episode, I hope you use it to inspire those around you. And I'll see you next time on In a Spiritual Sense. For those looking to connect further, please feel free to send emails to info@inaspiritualsense.com or hit me up on Instagram, where you can find weekly inspiration and updates. I look forward to connecting with you.
This show is part of the Mindful Podcast Network.